Welcome to another episode of Radiant Central, and I'm your host, Natasha St. Michael, and thank you so much for joining me. So recently, someone asked me, what about gas and bloating? What's causing it? Great question. I know a lot of people deal with this issue, and for some people, they deal with it as a chronic issue, and it's just something that doesn't go away. There's a lot of things that could be causing it. Pretty much if you're having any sort of gas or bloating, it means that you have some sort of digestive distress. And it's coming from some sort of food that you're eating. And it could be a chronic issue because you're always eating a certain food or a combination of foods that is pretty much messing up your digestion. So the first thing to always look at is allergenic foods, like dairy products, wheat, soy, corn, things like that, eggs. These foods are known to be allergenic food, and some people have a full-blown allergy to it. Other people, they have a sensitivity. So if it's something that you think could possibly be it, that perhaps you're eating a lot of dairy products or you eat a lot of things with soy or whatever it is, I would suggest doing an elimination diet or even getting allergy tests. This is one way of figuring out if it is coming from this. And so with an elimination diet, pretty much for at least 2 weeks, you would get off of one type of food. So for, let's say with dairy, I would start with dairy for 2 weeks. No dairy products. That means no milk, no cheese, no cream, no yogurt, nothing that contains cream or milk. And that also includes butter or ghee, things like that. Take a break for at least 2 weeks and see how that goes. If you notice that suddenly the gas goes away and no bloating, none of that, then you know that it's coming from that and you should stay away from it. And then if there is no change, then reintroduce it back into your diet and take a break from something else, okay? And you can try this with the dairy products, with eggs, with soy products, with corn, and also with wheat, okay? And do this 2-week stretches for each type of food. It's one way of identifying if any of these foods are causing the issue. If none of them are causing the issue, or if it's helping but it's not solving the issue, then it could be something else. And it could be that it's not necessarily an allergy, but it could be that your body just has a hard time breaking it down. And I find one food that causes a lot of issues with bloating and gas is fruit. Okay, and sometimes it's about the combination of fruit, that you're eating fruit with a whole bunch of other foods, and the mixture of fruit with the other foods is causing a lot of gas and bloating, because pretty much fruit digests much quicker than other foods. And a lot of times I find fruit in general is better eaten on its own. And so if someone has a lot of gas and a lot of bloating, one thing I would recommend is doing an experiment for at least a week where when you are having fruit, you're having it only in the morning on an empty stomach, no other food with it, and you're waiting at least an hour before you eat anything else, okay? And just have the fruit on its own as is, and don't have it at any other time during the day, and see how that goes. If suddenly you notice after a week of doing this that you have absolutely no more gas, your stomach is flat and everything's good, then you know that you can't be eating fruit with other foods, and that you're better off eating it on its own, isolated on an empty stomach, and probably only in the morning, because that's the time where you haven't eaten anything before then. So it's not mixing with anything, it's not fermenting, it's just getting digested, okay? If you notice that it does help, but it's not totally taking it away, one thing I can also recommend is trying different fruits. Some people do not digest high sugar fruits or high GI fruits like tropical fruits or melons, things like that, that no matter when they have it or if they have it, they're always getting terrible gas and terrible bloating. And for these people, sometimes it's better that they just, when they're having fruit, they're having berries, or they're having an apple, or they're having citrus fruit, but they're staying away from tropical fruits like pineapple or papaya, mangoes, or they're taking a break from high sugar fruits, especially watermelons and grapes, things like that, things that just, they might be very sensitive to the fructose, to the fruit sugars, and that's what's causing the gas and bloating. So that's something too to do an experiment with. First, try having the fruit on an empty stomach first thing in the morning and not having it at any other time of the day, and see how that goes. If that's actually helping, then do the experiment of just having berries, apples, and oranges, and citrus fruit, grapefruits, things like that, and no other types of fruit, and see how that goes. You know, you might see that, you know, you do good just having a bit of berries every day and that's it. And that's kind of like your fruit fix. But if you have anything else, it just messes you up. Okay, so try that out. Sometimes too, I know some people that don't do well having any fruit at all, except for having a bit of dried fruit. So that too, that might be an option. But something to experiment with and something to be open with. You know, as much as fruit might be good for one person, it might not be so great for another. Another thing too is fiber in general. You know, there is like this whole thing about eating high fiber. Not everyone does well eating fiber, okay? And I would say that someone that has a lot of gas and a lot of bloating and going, perhaps having irritable bowel syndrome or having issues where they're dealing with chronic constipation or they're always having a lot of diarrhea or just irritated gut, it might actually be the fiber and having too much fiber. You know, doctors are always pushing, have more fiber, and they're always pushing a lot of times having more whole grains. And not everyone does well having whole grains or having a lot of whole grains. That too, it's kind of like the fruit. Do an experiment where you perhaps not have whole grains for a while and see how that goes. You know, or trying different whole grains at different times. Like some people, they do well having rice, but they can't eat quinoa. Or some people do well having oats, but they can't have oat bran. So sometimes it might be that the fibers in the grains is what's irritating your digestive system and causing the gas and the bloating and all the issues. So that too is something to experiment with. First try out the fruit, then perhaps try out the grains. The one thing I can say with vegetables as well, that could be another issue, is having a lot of vegetables too can be causing gas. But out of all the vegetables, I find to be sort of the most neutral, that doesn't really cause so much gas and can actually help with the bloating and help with the gas, is having greens, green leafy vegetables. So having lettuces, having spinach, having kale or Swiss chard, those kind of things I find don't disrupt the digestion as much as perhaps other types of vegetables, like having eggplant or cruciferous vegetables or nightshade vegetables, things like that. So I would say too, doing an experiment to see, you know, is it certain vegetables that you're having a lot in your diet that is messing it up. But I find out of all the food groups, vegetables to be more the neutral ones, and the most neutral are the greens. So if you're dealing with digestion, first look at the issues with allergenic foods, then look at what's going on with your fruit and experiment with having fruit just in the morning and having lower glycemic fruit. And if that doesn't work, then check out the grains, try eliminating certain grains for a while and see if that helps. And then if that seems to help, that might be an indication that there's something going on with digesting fiber. You know, a lot of times people come to me saying they did fine when they're eating processed food, but the moment they started introducing whole foods into their diet, then they dealt with all sorts of issues with gas and bloating and digestive distress. And a lot of times it's just too much fiber, too much at once. Sometimes you have to kind of ease into these things too. Sometimes it's about slowly introducing it and sticking more with knowing which foods are easy for you to digest that are healthy foods and which ones you have to have only small amounts at a time, or even avoid and later on introduce them into your diet. You know, sometimes just too much, too fast, just is too much. And also too, different ways of preparing your food. Some people, they can't digest raw vegetables. Sometimes they're much better off either putting it in a blender, or they're better off steaming it or poaching it or boiling it or baking it, other ways. You know, once you're sort of cooking any kind of food, you're processing it down a bit, and that too will help with digestion, especially if someone has a weak digestive system. That can make a big difference as well. And the same thing with the whole grains is that sometimes it's whole grains, it's just too much fiber and it kind of irritates the digestive system. So it might be that you cannot have like a bowl of quinoa, but you can maybe have bread that's made out of like mashed down quinoa grains, you know, into a flour that's made into a bread, and you do better with that. So it's also thinking about that too. It's perhaps that your body's just having a really hard time processing food down, and it needs to be processed down a little bit before you can be eating it. And the same thing with pureeing food as well, that sometimes someone does much better having things like soups or smoothies as opposed to having the whole food. And sometimes it's the opposite, that they do terribly having anything pureed and they do better having the whole food itself. So many different things to experiment with, but a lot of times people just focus on kind of one thing, and if that doesn't work, then nothing's going to work. But a lot of times it's having many ideas and many things to work on and trying one thing at a time to see what can be the issue. All right, so these are my suggestions. And I guess too, one thing as well that I'll mention is one thing to help with the bloating and the gas is to make sure to be well hydrated and to be doing exercise. I find a lot of times people's issue with bloating and gas is that they're not moving. And so everything's taking a long time to kind of move through their digestive system. And the moment they just start moving around, perhaps going for a walk or a run or doing some yoga and some stretching or housework even, but making sure every single day that they're actively moving around, that they notice, my digestion's getting a lot better. I'm less bloated, I'm less constipated. And it's just from moving, because when you move your body, then your bowels and stuff are moving, and the pockets of gas and air, they're also able to move through as well. Okay, so that is something definitely to be bringing in if you haven't yet done that. Okay, so these are my tips and suggestions, and if anyone wants to join us for the next 10-day juice fasting program, it starts this coming Wednesday, April 1st, a perfect spring cleanse. Great way of doing a 10-day extended juice fast. It's an online program, and everyone's welcome to do it, whether you've never done a juice fast before or you've done many before. This is a great program. It's a group program. And it's for 10 days, and once you sign up, you get the full instructions on what to be drinking every day. Plus there's an online forum to connect up with everyone doing the juice fast with you, and there's also daily videos, 20 to 40 minutes long, that walk you through everything you need to know about juice fasting and what to expect and how to deal with the cravings and the detox symptoms and digestion, and also there's other topics too that are addressed, such as natural skincare and exercise and taking care of yourself and all sorts of stuff, and how to transition off the fast and beyond the fast. So it's a great, very all-inclusive program. And if you want to join us, the next one starts April 1st, and you can go to my website at radiantcentral.com, click on products, and you'll see a juice fasting program there. All right, have a fabulous day, everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.